What's up?
Hi, my name is Johnny, and today we're going to interview Miss Daina here.
Good
Yes, so we're
afternoon.
going to interview her about her university experience. Yes. So, first question, what university did you attend, and was it close to home or far from home? And how did you adjust?
So I actually attended two universities. The first one that I attended was an hour and a half away from home, and the second one was 3 hours away from home. The first one was for 4 years, and the second was only for one. The difference actually made a huge impact on like my ability to go home on the weekends. If it was closer, I think I would have gone home more, and I think I would have enjoyed that school year more. But it being so far away did play a huge role. The school that I attended that was an hour and a half away, at that time, I also had a boyfriend that was attending that school at the time. And he was a boyfriend from high school. So we both went to university together. So that made it a lot easier. I didn't actually go home as much. But then we broke up and I didn't have a boyfriend and I wanted to go home all the time and it was too far away.
Oops. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Okay. Well,
Should I be talking into it like this?
Oh.
Oh. Okay.
So next question, what degree did you earn, like any major or any minor, and how many years in total did you attend college?
So I attended for 5 years total. I did 4 years in my undergraduate. I majored in English, surprise, surprise,
Yes.
and I minored in history. And then I took 1 year off, and then I went back and I got my Bachelor of Education to become a teacher.
Fun. Are you looking forward to have more degrees in the future?
I actually have been thinking a lot about this lately. I've been thinking about whether or not it's a good idea to get like an education and say on paper that you have something, or to like actually go out and just find a way to do it yourself. So, for example, you can go home and get like a master's in education, or I could get like a specialization in maybe like teaching English language learners. But is it better to go and get my specialization, or is it better that I spent 3 years at TCIS with English language learners? I think it's good to have a combination of both. So I think what I'm going to keep doing for now is to keep doing like practical hands-on experience, and then maybe in the future go back and study it once I have more experience.
So when you were like looking for a university, did your parents support your decision on college major or any your decision?
Actually, they didn't want me to move away from home. They wanted me to stay at home in Toronto because the University of Toronto is close to home. I wanted to go away because I wanted to go to a specific program, and I had a boyfriend. And in the end, they supported me going away because I told them my specific reasons. And I'm really glad that I did go away, because I think that the whole experience of being like living on my own and being honestly in a new place, like being outside of the city, exposed me to different types of people. I'd never lived outside of the big city before. It was more of a rural area. I started listening to country music. It was a weird phase of my life, but it was good.
So speaking of weird things, what activities or organizations did you participate in?
When I was in my first year, I joined the rowing team. And back then I was really weak. And so instead of being a rower, they wanted me to be that person that sits in the boat and like steers the boat. And I didn't want to do that. So I quit. But I lived with the soccer team. All of my friends were on the soccer team, even though I wasn't on the soccer team. And so when I was in second year, my whole house of girls that I moved in with were soccer girls, and we were all friends with the soccer boys. And soccer, even though I don't play soccer, was a huge part of my university experience. In addition to that, I also did some fundraising with a organization called Shine. So we did like we did like a lot of car washes and fundraising for cystic fibrosis, and that was really fun.
So you did not live in campus, right? Or did you?
I did my first year. I lived in campus and I had my own room.
So how was it?
Looking back, maybe I would have had a roommate because that would have meant that I had a friend, like guaranteed. I worked out to like make friends anyways, and I liked having my own space so I could like go home and study if I needed to or sleep, and I didn't have to deal with like a roommate that I didn't like. But I had roommates like after that when I moved in to house. Do you want to hear about that? Mm-hmm. That was messy. You guys asked for the details. I'm going to give you the details. There are a lot of conversations that are really hard to have in university when you're living with people. Conversations about money, conversations about like your boundaries, and even just like, you know, how people act and how that makes you feel. And that was something that 6 girls in one house had a really hard time doing. People started buying dogs. Like there was 2 dogs. It started with 1 dog, and that got messy, and then someone decided to get another dog, and so these dogs were like eating things, and it created a lot of drama. And the issue was not the dogs; it was the girls that didn't know how to like necessarily handle the drama. Looking back, we should have just had open conversations with one another.
So
it was a good learning experience, though.
Back to university life. So when you're like studying English or like education, have you ever considered like changing your major, or like any thoughts on like, yeah, I want to give this up?
When I was in my first year, I studied a couple of subjects that I had never intended to major in, like international development and psychology. And I liked them so much that I thought about majoring in them, but then I thought about how that was going to benefit what I wanted to do in the future. And since I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I never pursued it, especially international development, because although I thought it was very fascinating, I didn't see myself using it for a career. So I didn't actually ever think about like changing halfway through, but I did consider the courses that I took, my interest in them, and how those interests like kind of played into what I wanted to do.
So while you're at university, are you like working, or like you get any internship or like part-time job while you're like studying at university?
When I was in my 4th year of university, I got a job. I got a job as a waitress, and actually I thought it would be really hard, but I still had enough time for everything, because it's kind of like the busier you are, the less time you waste. So if I had time to get my work done, I would have to use that time, so I didn't procrastinate as much. In my first year, I didn't work, and I'm glad that I didn't, because it was a huge adjustment. However, if anyone had to work in their first year for financial reasons, I would suggest like not being too concerned about it, because you are going to meet, like I met a lot of friends outside of school through work, and it was enjoyable to have that, to take my mind off school sometimes. And then in terms of internships, the program that I was in like it was technically a 5-year teaching program, even though I majored in English. And I did like teaching placements along the way. So I had like a little bit of experience every year.
So what is a typical university workload? Like how much time do you spend working on your papers or essays or like projects, or like in one day? How much free time do you have?
Not a lot. Like I think I had enough free time, maybe like 3 or 4 nights, maybe 2 or 3 nights of the week. I had free time to like go out with my friends, and then on the weekend, hey, Mr. Conrad. We're talking about university. Yeah. Did you have a lot of free time in university, Mr. Conrad? Did you have a lot of free time in university?
It all depends on what professor you took. My roommates were geologists, and I had one guy who was a chemist. They had a lot less time than I did.
Yeah, so, okay, to be honest with you, I did skip sometimes in university, but only because I could. I wasn't in a program where, like English, you know, if you miss a week, you just read the book. It's not like they were core skills that you were missing out on. And I liked that aspect about like having the choice of whether or not I wanted to go to a lecture. I never skipped seminars because those were interesting and we actually had discussions. But in terms of how much free time I had, like I didn't have a whole lot, but I also watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy, so I must have had some free time.
So looking back to your university experience, like what is like the most memorable experience like in university?
Most memorable. That's hard. The fundraising part's not necessarily like the actual work that we put in, but like the events that we put together, those were really fun because they were like Frosh Week events. And honestly, majoring in English, I loved my seminars because it was like book club. I liked that. Yeah, we just. That's not what you want to hear. I liked what I enjoyed what I majored in, so it was really intellectually stimulating. Like I actually felt like I was learning a lot, and that was pretty cool. But also living on my own and like that first taste of like being an adult and having responsibilities, but also the freedom to do what I wanted to do was pretty memorable.
Okay, so speaking of experience, what is the most rebellious thing you did during your college years? So did you regret doing it? I don't have to answer this question, but I mean.
The most rebellious thing that I did, I stayed up all night once to study for an exam.
That's me yesterday. Hello.
I actually had never pulled an all-nighter before university. The most rebellious thing that I did, I was much more rebellious after university. And I am happy to look back on my university days and know that, and actually before university too, I was more rebellious in high school. And I actually am quite thankful that I wasn't too rebellious in university because my parents were paying a lot of money and I was paying a lot of money to be there. And I also, I didn't like make a bunch of mistakes that a bunch of people saw because I saw people make mistakes.
Stay in school.
Yeah, stay in school, guys. Yeah.
So, lastly, do you have any advice for students who are applying to university now or like in the future?
My advice would be don't worry about like how long a program is going to take because the time is going to pass anyways. And don't necessarily worry about how hard it's going to be to get a job afterwards because if you're good at what you want to do, you'll get a job. And if you're afraid of going away and meeting new people, you should definitely, and I know this is always the advice that's given, but if it wasn't for the soccer team that I didn't play on, I wouldn't have had like the friends and experiences that I had. So just get involved with a club somehow. It's a really good way to kind of break the ice. And slack off a little bit, but don't slack off too much because I actually learned a lot in university and I am the way that I am now because of it.
Okay, thank you, Miss Daina.
You're very welcome. Do I have any salad in my teeth?
No.
Okay.
If we have salad on the seat and then we have to film the whole thing again.